So far, we've stuck to single values. However, most data processing is a collection of values. That's the difference between a cheese pizza and a menu of pizzas. There are several types of collections you'll find in Swift and other programming languages. The most basic of these is an array. Arrays are ordered collections. By ordered, each element of the collection has a place in line signified by an integer index. That's easier to see than say, so let's take a look at a few simple cases. We're going to do this in a clean playground file to keep it simple. So I'm going to go ahead and close up Hooli Pizza Takeout here. And we're going to go over here and put a playground file up. So you use the rectangle, go right in there. And we're going to get some code together. Now, this one really doesn't need it, but as a habit, I always like to put import foundation if I'm not doing Swift UI stuff. So I'm just going to put that in to start. There's two ways to declare an array. The first is to implicitly declare it by using square brackets around the list you want to make. For example, I can make a list like this. I'll start with var. I'll make an array A. And I just put the square brackets. And I'm going to put some values in here. So I'll just use some integers. So we'll do 1, 6, 15, 20, 15, 6, and 0. And notice that we can repeat values here, which is one of the reasons I use this array. Okay, and that's all you need to do. Now the compiler will assume I'm working with integers because I stuck in integers here. However, it will be more efficient and tell everyone reading your code what you're doing if you actually declare the type. So we're going to go over here. And the way to declare a type is you can put A, and we've already done int. You've seen that before. But in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to say it's an array by putting it in brackets like this. Okay, so that says there's an integer array, and it's going to have these values in it. It's important to note here, and it's part of that declaration, that says you can't mix types in here. If I were to go, let's say, over here to the 0, okay, and I change that to quote 1, quote, okay, you're going to get an error. And you can see, let's pop up that error there, and it says, can I convert value of type string to expected element type int? It's saying you can't do that. I'm going to go back and make that 0 again. And that solves my error. Once you have an array, you can access elements inside the array by the position of the array. So there's one trick to this though. That first element is 0. So if I do print A, and I'm going to be using brackets again, and this time I'm going to put inside of the brackets which one of those elements we want. And I want the first element, which is going to be 0. Okay, and if I run my code here and bring up the console, there you go, it says 1. Let's try another one here. I'll put this down. I'm going to go print A 2. Okay, and before I run my code, which one do you think that's going to be? Now go ahead and run it. And if you pick 15, then you're correct, because 2 is the third element in the array because we're starting with 0. Arrays have a few methods you'll want to know. The most important one is count, which returns the number of elements in the array. So for example, print a.count, if I run that, I get there are 7 elements in this array. Now what happens if you do this though? So what am I doing here? I'm printing the count element of array. And if I go ahead and run that, you get an error. This is what's known as a runtime error. Runtime errors are ones you don't see while writing code, but you do when executing. And this is one of the most classic runtime errors of all. It's called array index out of range, as it says here. And it's one where you have an indice of 0 through 6, but the count here is 7. So if you do something like this and just subtract 1 from the count, you get a value of 0, which is the last element we have on our list there. You can change values in the array as well with an assignment. For example, I can do A6 here. That will equal 1. And then I can go and print A. And the cool thing here is print lets you print all kinds of stuff. It's one of the few places where you can print a full array to see what it looks like. So I'm going to print the whole array so I can see what the whole array looks like at this time. And run code. And there you go. Now you can see over on the console, you can see the full array. And now I've got it set so that I have 1, 6, 15, 20, 15, 6, and 1. So that's the whole array. That's pretty cool. And if I wanted to add another number to the end of the list, you can do that too. So I can do something like this. A equals A. And you actually use the plus sign. And it's not adding this. It's putting an extra value onto it, or appending is a better word for it in this case. Now what you're going to do is you're going to put something in an element form. So it's going to be inside of brackets. And let's put in 42, for example. Now we can go ahead and hit return there. And then we go ahead and try to print A again. And now you can see in the console that we've got 42 appended to this. Now let's try to add one more value here. Because you can do this the other way, which is use the append method. So I can say A. And it's got a method append, and you can see it there in the auto insertion there. So you can go ahead and hit append. And append will just put the element you want. So I can put in 314, for example. Go ahead, print A again. Now run my code. And now my array has 2 more elements. It's got the 42 from the first append, and this is the second append. And you use one or the other. A lot of it has to do with style. Sometimes it has to do with how you're dealing with your data. So it depends on each one of those cases. Let's now try to apply this inside the app. We're going to head back over to the app from here. All right, and we're back in the app. Let's go over to menu model to start this. I'm going to point out something here. We've got over here in menu item, we got 2 variables, item 1 and item 2. That is actually a very bad way of doing this. That's not good style. You really want to do, if you have a bunch of items that are all like similar, you're probably going to want to stick them in an array. So let's go ahead and change this whole thing up. And I'm actually going to delete all of this to do this and replace it with a very simple var menu. And anything can be an array, so I could actually make my struct menu item an array. And then after that, I can put in my values. And I've got test menu item 1 and test menu item 2. Now I can do it in the same way I did it before in our line. But once you start getting more complicated values in here, particularly things where you've got structs with initializers and the things and stuff like that, you're going to want to put these on separate lines. So this is a good style thing I tend to do is I put them on separate lines. And so we got test menu item 1 and then a comma. And then test menu item 2. And that is all I need for the menu model now. And it's all set to go. Now I can go back up into content view and use this. And I've got 2 things I got to do here. So the first one is over here in menu, because this no longer works. And you can see we've got an error because it says, hey, you don't have all this extra stuff here. Because if you look back here at menu model, I've gotten rid of all that. There is no parameters to this anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and change this. And I'm going to delete all of my parameters. Now that gives me the object menu model, but it doesn't give me my menu yet. To do that, I've got to now go and put a dot menu. And now I have the array menu inside of the variable menu. And now I can go ahead and use that. And that I'll do down here on the bottom. Because I've got these item 1s and item 2s and stuff like that. And I can go over here and change these up. So we'll make this one 0. Item 2 will be a 1. And you can see we've got errors because it doesn't know what item is anymore. And those go away. And so this is going to be 0 because that was an item 1. And down here we've got an item 2. So I get rid of that. And that's going to be a 1. And when all that resolves, you'll see that your menu is now working again. And it's doing exactly the same thing it was doing before. But now it's a lot more streamlined and easier to read. There's more you can do with arrays, but we'll just get us started. Arrays are how you often store data in a collection in a list of ordered data accessible by an index.